Tell Me More podcast is being recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Hello and welcome to Tell Me More. Today I am joined by Paul Versace, who you might know as Style by Bloom. Paul is one of Australia's most sought after fashion stylists, and he also happens to be one of my best friends. With his unique social media aesthetic, growing digital presence, and diverse mix of celebrity clients, Paul has made a lasting impact within the fashion industry. But we aren't here to talk about that. Today, Paul is going to share his story about coming out at 29. My name is Olivia Molly Rogers, and I'm excited to get comfortable in the uncomfortable with you and remind you that nobody is perfect and everybody has something going on behind the scenes that you may not know about. I hope you enjoy the podcast. You've been one of my closest friends for a while now.
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
We met in 2018.
Yep.
And we've spent a lot of time together, but for a big chunk of that time, there was a lot about you that I didn't know. And around the time you turned 30, you made the decision to tell your close friends and family something about you that nobody knew. Can you tell me about that?
It's a little bit like not nervous, but just like I've never actually, I think we were having a chat about it, and I've never actually had a proper conversation. A lot of people don't actually know.
Yeah.
I feel like people just assume. But no, when I was just before I turned 30, I came out to everybody. It was kind of, do you remember I like took everybody out for like coffee and dinners? It was an expensive week. But I just wanted to have a moment with all my close friends and kind of be able to tell them and kind of have their not reactions, but just have that conversation with them one-on-one and not hear it from somebody else, or be in a group situation where like they might have questions or they might not be quite sure where I'm at with it. And to be fair, like I remember when I came out at the start of the year, last year, I was still kind of navigating my kind of identity too. Like you've always said over the last year especially, like I grew so much in that year. Like I even like identified myself in the beginning. I was like, well, like you're still kind of figuring out if this is your identity in a way. Like it's such a big making that step for me to come out and then to be in the closet per se. You're all of a sudden you're out and you're still kind of, I remember there was like weeks where I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is like actually happened. And like, this is real. Like there were so many times during my 20s that I would like toy with the idea of coming out. And then when it actually happened, you just kind of like take a moment and you're just like, yeah, like you're out kind of thing.
I feel like what you're saying is even though you came out, you sort of had to ease yourself out. Like it wasn't like 100% straight away you felt comfortable telling people that you were gay. Like it was a bit of a slow process.
Yeah, I think is like for me, everyone's coming out stories and kind of journeys to get to that point is so different. But I think for me, it was just kind of, it's not accepting, but just being so sure of myself at that point that I was just like, fuck it. Like I remember there was a time, I think it was because I was actually seeing someone before I came out, and that was one of the reasons I did come out with the partner. And I remember I was having all these amazing moments with him and I wasn't sharing it with all my friends, and all my friends are like everything to me. And I remember we'd be catching up and we'd be having all these amazing first like relationship type things, and I couldn't even tell my friends because I was just so set on that being a separate part to like this life. And then, yeah, I remember that there was a moment, I think it was in January, I really wanted to just like pick up the phone and call one of my best friends, but I didn't. And then I remember I was just like, why am I not calling her? Like, why is this still a thing? Like, why am I still keeping it a secret? And then I remember I still to this day I was in Sydney, and then I got back to Melbourne and I called her and I was just on the phone to her. And then it was almost like not word vomit, but I was just like, I kind of like knew that it was coming. I posted a story with him, and then she was like, who's that guy that you posted a story about? And in the past I'd be like, oh no, it's just a friend. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm kind of seeing him. And then she started crying, and then I was just like, why are you crying? And then I was like, you can't, she's actually going out with one of my best friends. And I was like, you can't tell your partner because I need to tell him myself. And then he walked in the door and she's crying, and he's looking at her and he's like, why are you crying? And she's just like, yeah, that was the start of a very big week. And then
very big moment.
Yeah. But
so I think a lot of people assume stories when it comes to coming out. And I know people have said to you like, oh, when did you decide that you were gay? Or when did you know? Or like, how did it take you so long to know? Yeah. Can you tell me about that? Like, you came out at 29.
Yeah.
What took you so long?
I think like fear.
Yeah.
I like a bit of background on me. So I, through high school, had a good group of friends, and then I got a job working in a cinema and met a lot of my best friends that I am with, best friends now. And then one in particular, he kind of like, we just got along so well, and then met a lot of friends through him, and then just like kind of loved the life I was building. And behind the scenes for me, it was like, you have this thing in your head where you're like, if I come out, I could lose this. And I think a big thing for me was acceptance. So like, I was finally, you could say, accepted, and had a group of friends that I loved, and this life that I really wanted, and started working out. And then I was like, ooh, like, and it was a different time for me, like 5 years ago or 6 years ago to now, I think is very different in terms of coming out. Like the whole culture is very different. And like, also like when you're younger and your friends are in their 20s and 21, they're not as mature as when you're 30, I think. So it was just like, even with like my family, like they've been amazing coming out, like they were great, but you kind of put in your head what that conversation is going to look like, and you like decide on what they're going to say. Or like, even like my best friends, I was just like, oh, I could lose them, which is like so crazy to think of now, because it's been the most amazing like year and a half, like they've all been great. But at that point you're just like, oh, like if I tell them, they're not going to look at me the same, or they're not going to want to be as good of friends, especially like I've got a lot of straight guy mates, and that's a big thing too. Like back then I was like, oh, like would we still be the same? So that was, yeah, I don't know.
It must have been really hard knowing and sort of squashing such a big part of you. What now feels like such a big part of you. It's such a big part of your identity.
It's like, it was almost like you always know. But I think for me, especially like in my teens, like, you know, but you almost just like, no, I don't think so. Or like you're surrounded by people that aren't gay. And I think from hearing other people's coming out stories, if you're in an environment where there are a lot more gay people, and that whole culture is different. Whereas I was in an environment, very European family. All my friends were straight. Wasn't really any, at that point in time, anyone that I knew that was gay. And it just kind of, for me, you just like, and I like, you know, but I was just like, you just kind of like squash it, as you said, and then just like not hope that it doesn't go, because like I don't hope that it goes, but just try to put it to the side.
But was there part of you that did want that feeling to go?
I remember when I had like a girlfriend, when I was 20, and I remember there were moments where I was just like, well, I wouldn't even say girlfriend, I was seeing a girl, and there were moments where I'd watch movies and be like, this isn't what I have. Like I would watch like these like romantic like rom-coms, and I was like, I don't feel this way about her, and like this isn't like the same for me. And I'd always be like, and I'd look at like my really good friends, and they'd have these amazing relationships, and like we'd have these conversations, and they'd be going through heartbreak or like breaking up but being devastated, or like falling in love but like being so in love, and I'd be like, I haven't experienced that. And then you just like, that kind of makes you sad, because you get into this headspace where you're like, am I going to experience that if I don't come out? And then you like, I remember one of the biggest like kind of shifts for me was 2 years ago when I moved to Sydney and was working on The Bachelorette with Brooke Blurden. And that was such a fluid season. And like, I remember just, it was like so fine. Like there was no label. And I think that's what really helped me come out, was like not having the label and just being able to just be me. I think putting that you're gay straight away was really scary. But then because it was like you're bi or who cares, I think that was what was like, fuck it. And then being in a different state made it a lot easier for me to kind of just find my bearings, and not be in Melbourne and then have to like kind of decide straight away. Like I think even after like 6 months last year, like I was completely different. Like I was just like, fuck yeah, like I'm not going backwards. Like it was just so different to like how it started.
I have seen such a huge change in you in so many ways. Like it's hard to explain just how drastic the change has been in such an amazing way. Like it's like you've completely come out of your shell and come into your own. How would you describe Paul prior to coming out?
Prior to coming out, I was definitely a lot more guarded. Like I wouldn't let someone kind of, even like my close friends, you put up a wall and I wouldn't let them come past that wall. Like they would think they knew everything about me, but there was a whole other side of me that I didn't even know. And like, I'd say like anxiety, like you think that you're like managing your anxiety, but it's like through the roof back then. And like I was lucky that I was like really growing my career, so that would kind of shift my focus, and I'd be so busy with work and flying and jumping between states and being on shoots and just thinking about what's next, where you kind of, it was easy for me to kind of pull that to the side. And as you know, like I'm obsessed with what I do, and I work every day. So to have that to kind of not take your mind off it, but just that was my core focus. Whereas now I'm kind of like, I can have both kind of thing.
You still work nonstop, but you have more balance than before. So you were guarded. How else would you describe yourself?
I think a lot, maybe like not shy, but like a lot more quiet. Like
I would say shy.
Like I remember, do you remember people would be like, he's so quiet, and I speak so soft.
Yeah.
So like,
the volume is increasing as time goes on. It's good. Like, but yeah, I think people would describe you to me as really quiet and shy.
Yeah.
That was more so for people who didn't know you, if people just met you. Yeah. But I feel like now there's a real shift in that you give more of yourself from the get-go.
Yeah. And there's no like, the problem that I remember, especially in just like the way you dress or like the way you talk and like gestures, I remember like you'd be so scared that like if you would pushing it too much that people, oh my God, are you gay? So you like pull back and you kind of edit. Well, for me, I would edit, you edit yourself and kind of, I'd not be as easygoing or out there. And then even when I would, you would know that it'd be different to say your other guy friends. So you would be different. And then you just hope that like it wouldn't be picked up. Even like the way I like speak and like just the way I am now, it's like I'm so much more me. Like I don't worry, I don't care about like what anyone else will think, or it doesn't bother me. Like what, like why would it? But back then when you're like chasing your tail, you're like unsure where you're the whole thing was for me was like I was unsure what life would look like being out. And it's so crazy, like the industry I'm in, I'm a stylist. Like I remember people, I still remember like I was dressing We the Wild Ones and they hadn't met me before, and the perception of stylist, male stylist, and back then when I was like very like shy and muted, I'd meet all these people for the first time and they'd be like, oh my God, you were like not what I expected at all. But that persona as well, you're battling with that because you're a stylist. And I remember when I first decided to be a stylist and all my straight friends were like, they were like there for it, but that was another thing. They were like, oh, this might be like adding to like he's gay kind of thing, and which sucks because I think you can definitely be involved, love fashion and be a stylist and be straight.
Yeah.
But there was that too. So like, yeah.
Do you think it stopped you from pursuing styling earlier? Like, do you think maybe you would have gotten into it at an earlier age if you had not been afraid of people thinking?
I don't think it was that. I remember it was when I first dressed one of my good friends, it was so strategic in like making it that I wasn't actually dressing her because it could be too gay, but I would like found this dress, but I didn't find this dress. I looked for this dress, got these shoes, got this stuff, but I was like so excited. I was like, yeah, I just found this dress, just to be like this like straight guy, just like helping his mate's girlfriend. But like that was me kind of trying to like do what I loved. But back then, even when I was a little kid, like the signs were there. Like I would like go to like a shopping center and buy my sisters their outfits for like a wedding or the weekend and be so excited by it. But then I was also like a ruckman playing football. So like there was that massive contrast.
I don't think I knew you were the ruckman.
Yeah, I played footy till I was 16.
Wow.
2-time best and fairest.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
that's a fun fact. I didn't know.
Can't really kick, but I was just tall.
Tall.
It just worked.
Yeah, I can't really picture it, to be completely honest with you.
No one can, but I've got trophies. Like I do.
You've got proof.
I've got proof. But no, so I was like played every sport you can think of. I even tried cricket for a bit.
Do you think you pushed sport harder because you wanted to sort of...
Not really. Like I actually did really enjoy playing football. But like they even coached basketball, which like what? Played basketball. Like I literally did every like my parents were really big on like sport and like that whole like community. So like I did love it at the time, but like I couldn't picture myself doing that now.
Yeah.
Like it was more just like, and also like it made my parents really, really happy to be involved in that sport community.
Yeah.
So, and having that thing to like go to the football with your dad on a Saturday and then talk about it, and then being a really good player, and then your dad being proud of you in that, your dad being proud of you as a football player is awesome when you're a kid as well. But I think I've said to you, like the best thing for me that I like really cherish is like my dad being so about me being a stylist, which like the conversation, like we have a chat on a Monday and he's like, so what's new in the styling world? But that you would never think back when I was still not out that would ever be a thing.
Can you tell me more about, like I know from knowing you personally how much your family means to you and how much having their approval means to you.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about coming out to them? Because I know that was one of the things that really held you back was the fear of how that would go, coming out to your family.
Yeah. Well, I kept pushing it back, and I was like, no, I'm going to tell them tomorrow, and I'd like catch up with another friend and tell them, and then I was like, I just need to like do it. And the worst thing was I had like in my head, I had kind of already decided what their reaction would be, not because
what was that?
Just that they would kind of not understand it, and you kind of get scared that they're not going to like not love you as much, but just, I don't know, just not accept it. And I like, so stupid to think of that, but like now. But
I don't think it's stupid. I think it's probably a very common feeling.
Yeah, the biggest thing was just like I was so worried that they wouldn't like feel connected to me anymore, because like it's very different I think for the older generation, because it was very different when they were growing up. So like for them, what gay means to them is completely, well, it's so much better now, but you just think like there's so much ignorance in how people speak about it, how older people speak about gay people, and it just freaks you out, and you just kind of clump it all together when you're like thinking, fuck, I'm about to come out, and just assume that that's going to be their reaction. And it was so scary. Like I remember like,
can you talk through the
the
moment?
So I was in Sydney, and I had told a couple of people, and like I wasn't like it was like, you knew, like I was like storying and like posting, and it was almost like I needed to tell them. And then I was like, fuck it. So I was in my hotel room, and it was a day before Valentine's Day, I remember. And I was just like, I'm gonna just do it now, and maybe this will be better if I FaceTime them, and then I'll be back in Melbourne in like a couple of days, and at least they can like let it simmer, think about like, okay, like what questions do we have and then like that like not shock, but like that like impact will hopefully have like died down a little bit, and then when I see them in Melbourne, we can have a proper chat. So I was like, fuck it. So I just FaceTime them, and I remember I was just, can you guys talk? And they were both just like typical like work parents, just like trying to look in the FaceTime. And I was like, I'm like, sit down. And they're like, sit down. I'm like, just like take a seat. And then I looked at them, and I remember I was just like kind of like dancing around the idea of saying it. And then I was like, what am I doing? Like, let's just like do it. And I remember I said, I'm like, well, that person that I've been posting, I'm actually seeing him. And then I remember my mum and dad were like, oh, okay. And I was like, just before I even like let them have a reaction, I was just like, before you say anything, like, you're going to have questions. Like, it's so fine. Like, I want you to ask me questions. I don't want you to like assume and like think you know the answer, because it's probably wrong. And then I remember straight away, it was like, so like, is it your boyfriend? I'm like, yes, like it is. I'm seeing him. And then my I can't remember if it's my mum or dad were like, so are you gay or are you bisexual? I remember at the time I was like, I'm not putting a label on it, because I was still like, whoa, like let's just like take a step back. So I was like, I'm not putting a label on it right now. And that almost was like a safety thing for them at the time too, because it wasn't like an immediate like my son's gay, which just helped, I feel like, them come to terms with it too. And then I remember when I was like to my mum, and I was like, if you have any questions, ask me. And then I could just see like them like thinking about questions, and like then the first thing that they both said, like, we're happy if you're happy. So then it straight away for me was like, oh my god, like this is so good. And then my dad was just like who is he, like asking questions, but like questions that they would probably ask me if I was introducing them to a girl.
Yeah.
So it just made it kind of normal. And then we like hung up. Then my mum calls me back and she's like, so how are we gonna have kids? And I'm like, you can have, I'm like, this is good. Ask me all these questions. Like, and then we just went through it all. And then I think the good thing about it, because now it's a lot of my parents' friends have kids that are gay. So I was like, I want you to talk to your best friends and just like get a perspective on it as well. I think it's so straight. It's so weird. I think you come out and then you care so much about what everyone else is thinking. And I think you just want everyone to be just like, you're still the same person. And I think you care so much about where, especially for me, where my parents were at with it all. And I think after they like told their friends and just saw how like excited, even when I told like their really good friends, they were so excited, like, yes, finally, like we knew it. And I'm like, okay. But it was just like, but then you get really excited because everyone's just like so excited for you. And then I remember like my mum would just keep saying, she's like, you're just so much happier. And like, even when she'd like see me talking about just like telling my friends and like telling them, like they were just like, you could see like a shift in like my energy. And like, that was so special. Like, I think just like having that, and it was so fucked. Like I literally like had put a scenario in my head on like how the conversation would go, not because I didn't think they'd be able to handle it, but you're just scared.
Yeah.
Like it was because you just hear other people's coming out stories, and I was incredibly lucky with mine, but there are still people that have come out and they don't talk to their parents anymore, and their parents kind of don't have that relationship. And not to say that would ever be mine, but it's scary.
But the fear still existed.
It's really scary. Like even my sisters, like they were so excited and like just like, when can we meet him, and just like really excited for me. So I think like that whole week and a half was like a big week, but like it was amazing.
It was positive.
It was positive.
It's so good.
Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by a hair brand that I have loved for years, 11 Australia. Not only do 11 Australia products do what they say they do, but they smell incredible and they leave my hair looking and feeling amazing. As a special treat just for my listeners, 11 Australia have put together an exclusive gift redeemable with any purchase on their website. You'll receive a travel size of the Miracle shampoo and conditioner, plus a deluxe sample of their iconic Miracle mask. Simply head to 11australia.au/tell me more to claim the offer, valid until December 31st, 2023. You'll also find the link in our show notes. Now, when you look back on yourself before, there's been so many changes, like physically, mentally, emotionally, with your confidence, so many things.
Yeah.
Does it make you sad when you look at yourself before, because knowing now how much more confident you are and, you know, how happy you are to put yourself out there, and I feel like all these amazing opportunities come your way because you are more of a yes man, and there's been such a shift. It makes me sad when I think about how much you were keeping to yourself for so long, because that would have been so hard. How do you feel when you look back at yourself before?
Like I love the life I had, my 20s, like it was amazing. It was so much fun. But then I look at how amazing the last, say, year and a half has been. And like, it does make you a little bit sad, because like, I just see I'm constantly growing every day and like, just like learning new things about me. And then I have so many like more friends in this world now. And like, I just see how you always like, for me, it's like, what would life have been like if I had all these experiences in my early 20s and like made all these mistakes and like had boyfriends and just like was my true authentic self. And like I remember when I came out last year I was like, oh, I'm so happy that I didn't come out until 30. But then on reflection, it's like, nah, like I wish I came out earlier, and just like, and it might not have been as smooth as it has been, but like everyone's going to still love you no matter what. Like, I think I was just so like in my head about what people would think about me, and the fear of losing the life that I'd kind of built and like had. I was so worried that I would have no more friends, or like just not be like happy. But the thing is, you're so happy, like it's just like this big weight comes off. Like, but yeah.
We call old Paul like your awkward brother.
like from Perth. Not that Perth's bad.
Don't diss Perth. We love Perth. But yeah, old Paul is this awkward brother because like it's hard to recognize you. There's just so much about you that has shifted in the last year and a half, and it's just been amazing to see. What has been the biggest challenge? Because I know obviously the actual moments of coming out to everyone was difficult, but I mean moving past that.
I think it's just like finding your place, finding where you are at in your life. Like one of the biggest things, which you know, being one of my best friends, is having all these new experiences at 30, which you have all these new emotions, and like it's so weird. I like having like a serious relationship and like meeting parents and like having all these new feelings, but then breaking up and then kind of going through the motions. But the thing that I would say to like all my really good friends, and like the problem is like you've had all these relationships in your 20s, so you're like every time you've broken up with someone, you've been like, oh no, I know that it gets better, or like this is just normal, like there's more out there. Or
no, I think like my experience, I had a boyfriend that I broke up with at 15, and I was absolutely heartbroken, and I thought I'm never going to meet someone else.
Yeah.
I'm never going to find someone who loves me. My world was crashing down around me. My mum said she remembers me crying in the bathroom and she was just looking at me like, you're going to be fine. Like, you're being very dramatic. You dated girls, but because you weren't completely in love with them.
Yeah. I was never in love with them.
Yeah.
Sorry, any girlfriend that I've had.
You're still friends with all of them, I think.
I mean, no.
No? Okay. Some?
We're not friends. Anyway, let's move on.
Moving on. Because you weren't in love with them and didn't have that deep connection, when you broke up, it was probably like, okay, see ya.
Fine.
Yeah. Like you were fine. So it wasn't until more recently when you had a relationship with a guy that you did fall in love with that you experienced that real heartbreak. And yeah, I would love for you to talk more about that.
Yeah, I think like that was such like that time we had together was like to this day, like it was amazing. Like, and I wouldn't change that for the world. It's just like, you just don't know like what comes after the breakup is just like, you just kind of like lose yourself a little bit, and you do like, I like didn't recognize myself for like, you'd always say like, come on, like, let's just like, this isn't you. And like, you make these like, you do things in your head like that you think like, because it's all these new like emotions for me. And I was just like, and I'm such a hopeful and I'm such a romantic. And when I like go into a relationship with friends, especially, but then going into a relationship with most recently with that partner, I was all in. So you kind of go all in and like hoping not to fall. So then when you do, it's especially when you're falling in love with that person, yeah, it rocks you. And like I remember I was like, okay, like we're broken up, but I also like through my partner at the time, I met so many amazing people through him, and like kind of felt a lot more connected to that community, which was amazing. Like we were going to like Mardi Gras for the first time, and like it was just so much fun, and just like I was like finally getting to like that point where I was like, fuck yeah, this is like my life. And then when that kind of just all changes, you're just like, fuck, how am I back here? Not back here, just like, yeah, it rocked me. And I remember you just like I would not recognize who I was, because you just all these new like just like this like really intense like sadness. And the problem with what I do for work is you're always with people, and your energy, and me in general, like I have a big energy, so people bounce off my energy. So to go from this really happy guy to then this really like muted, sad, like it was just like, it was a lot.
Yeah.
And then it took time, like, and then I would like try think that things would help make it better. So like you try to be friends straight away, but then like I've never had that to compare to, and I'd have friends telling me like, no, do this or do that, or I've had a relationship like this, but I haven't. But you just like, you're like, no, this is, I had nothing to compare it to. Like, yes, I've seen people in the past, but never fallen in love like that with someone. And it's just like, I would say to like my other best friends, and I get it now. Like I remember when you were devastated, and I was like, oh, I've never, like, just get over it. I'd be like, what do you mean? Just get over it. Like, it's fine. But like, they'd be like, no, like locking their doors and like crying. And I'd be like, I don't get it. Like, it's just a partner. But now I do. Like it's just like, and everyone would say time, just like, we'll fix it. And it does. Like I look at myself a few months ago, like to now, and I'm like finally like, okay, like that had to happen. But like, yeah, now I'm just like moving forward. But it was like heavy going through all these new things especially when you're older. I feel like you have a partner, and when you're like 15, you can have a really intense relationship and be in love. But when you're 30, 31, you kind of plan this life, and it's not just having a partner. You're like, oh, it doesn't matter if we break up, like, but you're thinking about a life together. So you break up with that relationship ends, and also this life that you thought you were building ends. Yeah, which I think you mourn that as well, and like,
yeah, it's the grieving of what could have been, as well as the loss of what was,
and also like the amazing relationships you form and build with the parents, and like the mum and the sister, and like that all goes too, and not just doesn't go, but like it's just like a whole shift. And I think you mourn all of that, but definitely like a learning curve. And it just like will just like I wouldn't like that had to happen. Like everything happens for a reason, everyone keeps saying. So I'm just like,
you needed to learn through that experience.
Yeah, for sure. And like you never know what the future holds in terms of like where your life will be at, and I think you just need to roll with it. But yeah, it's definitely been a year.
Obviously heartbreak has been a massive challenge. Have you had any experiences with homophobia or pushback on your sexuality?
I always say like I've actually been quite lucky. Like I haven't really had any bad experiences with it. Like the thing that I always say to like a lot of my straight friends, and when they're like, oh, but like you're out, like you can do everything that we can do. I'm like, you can't though. Like we should be able to, but just little things like I've noticed being out, like you kind of, if you're in like a restaurant, you can't just like you can do whatever you want, but there is sometimes an etiquette in a restaurant. If you like hold your partner's hand or like you kiss them, some people, there is that homophobia where they look and like you feel really awkward
because you can tell that they feel awkward.
Yeah, so like, and that's what I try to say to like a lot of my girlfriends and guy mates. I'm like, you can just do that. So you could be at a restaurant or be at a park, and like, not to say that I can't do that, but no, but they can do that, and no one will look twice. Whereas there is always that person that will like look or like tap their partner and be like, what's that? But like, I don't care about it. But that's one of the things that is always there, which sucks.
It does suck.
Yeah.
I think you've told me that before and said that it's like you don't feel completely safe to do that.
Yeah, and like I've like, even like recently, like I wore a top that was like quite cropped. I remember I said to you, I was like, oh, I haven't worn a top like this during the day, like just at work. But like I was walking, and like you would see, I was walking down, I think it was, I don't even remember what street it was, but I was walking, and you would see like people like second looking you, and I was like, what is going on? Like, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, hello, like that's what it is, which sucks because it shouldn't be. And like, it wasn't like I was walking down the street topless.
No, but so you mean you had people looking at you, but not in a nice way?
No. Yeah. Oh, like, yeah, no, like not, they weren't doing it in a bad way, but they felt awkward because it wasn't the norm for them, which like for me, like you should be able to express how you want to feel through your dress. And not that I would stop wearing what I do, but it just sucks that you can't just, that it's just, and like it's so much better. Like I'm not saying you can't walk down the street and have people the other way like look at you and be like, fuck yeah, but there is that other side.
We had a moment in Sydney where you said to me, because sometimes you make me wear, like not make me, but encourage me to wear outfits that are very out there.
Yeah.
And other people might be in low-key outfits, and you're like, you're extra, it's fine. And you have me in like, I don't know, a ball gown in the middle of the day. And
when was that?
I don't know, I'm exaggerating, but that's how I feel sometimes.
Yeah.
And when people are looking at you, it's not always a positive feeling.
No.
And then we were in Sydney for Fashion Week, and you were wearing like a crop top for the very first time.
Yeah.
And we were walking down the street, and you were like, oof, now I know how you feel when people, when you feel the looks that aren't positive.
It's like they're not even meaning to not be positive, but their eyes
you can see the judgment.
Their eyes are so far out of their head, they have to catch it. Like it's like, fuck. But no,
you're like, put them back in.
Just like put them back in. It's not going anywhere. It's just a fucking top.
It's just my belly button.
It's just, oh, there's my belly button.
Okay, sorry.
I mean, yeah, it's been
close.
It's been out.
It's been close.
But no, like there's definitely that homophobic. But then the thing is, like, as for me especially, like when you become so sure about yourself, that doesn't matter anymore. Like I don't, like maybe Paul from, even like I always say to you, I'm like, oh my God, imagine if like Paul from 2 years ago crossed me on the street and I walked past him and I was like, hey, he'd be like, hey, like it'd be completely different. Like he'd be like, I feel for him because like he'd be so happy, but like that, he would never think that would be the type of person that he could have been. Maybe not 2 years ago, Paul, maybe like 4 years ago, Paul. But yeah, we always say that whenever I'm in like a really like cool outfit, we're always like, fuck, imagine if like Paul like in his like oversized black top with like
trackies. You what? Maybe like slightly dressier version of trackies to my book launch.
Yeah, I wasn't tracks. I'm a stylist. I can't be wearing tracksuits to a book launch. But no, I just think like that kind of evolving as well for me has been big. Like now I can just, I've always been obsessed with fashion, but now I can actually just wear whatever. Like I've always been able to wear what I want, but I feel like now for me, I can. And like even like my friends, they're just like, we just like love this guy. Like this is just like you. And like when you feel so good, you just like, I feel like this is so stupid. I would always say to people I dress, I'm like, I don't want to force you to wear this dress to like a red carpet or a lunch. And then I'd be like, do you feel amazing? But I would never do that for me. Like I remember maybe 2.5 years ago for Fashion Week, we went together and it was the first year I wore like a white and white, and it was like risky back then for me because I was like, oh, this is, and I was still like not out, and I was like, oh, this is a lot, but like I felt the best that I felt back then, as opposed to always wearing black. And just like,
I still feel like though you've come a long way since then, because I remember you were getting messages from a couple of your straight friends saying that you looked like a cricketer or something.
yeah,
And that really affected you.
Freaking out.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, fuck.
Yeah. I think you'd done a post and you're like, do I delete it? I was
Yeah.
like, no, you look great. Like, just embrace it. Whereas I think now, if they said anything, you'd be like, whatever.
I'd be like, whatever. Go like, wear your kiss chasey. Or, like, not that kiss chasey's bad, but, and none of my friends actually wear kiss chasey, to be fair.
Okay, we're not pointing anyone out in particular.
No, but I wouldn't even say that. I'd just be like, I don't care. I actually wouldn't care. Like, and there are times where like your straight friends will be like, "Ooh, that's a bit daring," or like, "Hello," or like even just wearing a Speedo, like to a pool. It's just like, oh, like we're like pushing it. It's like, we're not pushing it.
Yeah.
Like I'm wearing a Speedo.
Yeah.
Like you're in board shorts that go up to your knees. Like, you know what I mean?
Here we go. The sass comes out.
Yeah.
Now, you do have a lot of straight guy friends.
I do.
You haven't lost them in the
No,
process.
if anything, like it's made our relationships stronger, because one of the things that we could never really talk about was relationships. Like I'd always be the soundboard for them, but they would never be able to do that for me. So it's, a lot of my best mates say like, it's so great. Like they love hearing like the other side, like of me dating and how crazy that world is, and like being able to kind of give advice. And I think especially like going through the ups and downs of seeing people and breakups and relationships, having friends you can kind of get advice from and talk to, and then they can kind of reflect on their relationships. It's made our friendships so much better. Like especially like my guy mates, like hearing their feedback and like, yeah, like there's been like not a learning curve, but like adjustment in terms of like, I think for them it was not saying the wrong thing, because you don't, even though like they've all been amazing, it's like, oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing and then come across like I'm not accepting. That I don't want to ask you too much about it and make it as if I'm just like asking you to ask you kind of thing.
I want to know. I mean, I do know. I want you to tell more about your experience with sort of entering the gay community for the first time. So going to your first gay bar, going out in that way. Can you tell me about that experience and how that's changed for you?
I feel like for me, going to a gay club when you're first out, it's so different to now, because when you're out and you can go out to a gay club, and just like you're not worried about anyone finding out that you're gay anymore. So it's just like, fuck yeah, I'm here. And like you've been with me to many gay clubs, and it's a completely different vibe to a straight club. Like you literally said to me when we first went to one, you were like, I think like people say hello by kissing.
I was shook. I feel like everyone was greeting each other by hooking up. I'm like, whoa, I don't know.
Or just like kissing on the lips, which is so different to a straight. Like you don't just like walk into like imagine if you walked into say a club and just kept kissing everyone on the lips, like, hey, like it wouldn't.
Nice to see you.
It wouldn't happen.
No.
But I think for me, just like being out and like being able just to like, even just like, I think like having conversations with people and like getting to know people at a club and not having to hide anything about you or like be worried that like they're gonna put the pieces together and be like, oh, I know him, he's friends with him, he's not out. But like the thing is, I still don't think someone that's gay would ever out someone, from my experience.
Yeah.
Because they've had their own coming out stories. It's more just like the ignorant straight people
Yeah.
that like think that it's, oh my God, but everyone knows. Like we've had situations where we've been out and like, I always knew you were gay. It's like, whoa, I didn't even know you.
Yeah, I want you to tell me more about that as well. I get sort of defensive when people say things like that because over the years, you know, having known you for 5 years, I had people ask me about your sexuality before you had come out to me.
Yeah.
Which I also think is a weird thing to do. But people would say to me is, what's Paul's deal? And I wonder if some of them were
like,
interested in you.
But
or,
even like that, like what's Paul's deal?
I know. They would say it like that.
Like,
They'd say, what's his deal? Is he into guys? Is he into girls? Like, what's the deal? And I had said a few times, I genuinely don't know. And it doesn't matter to me. And I also think, you know, they had said to me, a few people said, oh, why don't you ask him? And I'm like, I don't want to ask you about your sexuality when, for one, it doesn't affect the friendship either way. It's like, I figured if you wanted to talk about it and tell me about, you know, someone you were dating or anything like that, you would tell me. We spent so much time together. There were plenty of opportunities, but I didn't want to pry until you were ready.
Yeah.
And then I think when you were ready, that's when you came out. So it was perfect. But yeah, a lot of people, acquaintances now will say, oh, I always knew he was gay. I knew he was gay before he knew he was gay. I'm like, it's such a weird judgy
like, how did
thing
you
to
know
say.
before me? And like, why didn't you tell me? Like,
Why didn't you let me know?
Like, I just think even when someone's like to me, oh my God, like you should have told me like when I met you. I'm like, okay.
Why?
But like what? Yeah, or just like, you know, you have to be gay. You're a stylist. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But no, like I think for me, it's just like the assumption which made it so much harder for me to come out because I would have like my best friends, like it doesn't matter who they are. My best friends get asked all the time and it puts pressure on them. And one of my really good friends, she'd ask me, like, not in a bad way, but she was like, everyone's asking me like, are you gay? And I would just kind of like shrug it to the side because I still wasn't there. And she's like, I know you're not. Like, she was always defensive. And like, it just sucks that like that is a thing. Like, it's not just like, oh, like, are you gay or are you straight? It doesn't really matter. Like, there is still that stigma, I feel.
Yeah. If you could go back to, say, 15-year-old Paul or 19-year-old Paul, 20-year-old Paul, who kind of knew he was gay but didn't know how it would look if you came out, what advice would you give him?
That's a hard one. I feel like a lot of the decisions I made back when I was 19, 18 and 20, I did, as I said, because I thought that was what was best for me then. But I think I'd just say to him, just do it. Like, it probably wouldn't have been as smooth as it has been.
When you say do it, do you mean
come out? I'd just come out. Like, I can say it wouldn't have been as smooth. I know I'm still kind of putting assumptions on my friends and what life would have been like, but I do think it was a different time. But I think people would have gotten over it. And the people that might have been a bit shook at the time would have just grown with me. I think I didn't let my friends, I didn't give them the opportunity to do that, like, and to make mistakes. Like, even back then, they probably would have said the wrong thing or like needed time. But right now, I'm even deciding what they would have done. They might have been amazing about it. And to be fair, they probably already knew. But I was just like trying to be this like not straight guy, but like they knew, but it was me just being scared. But if I could say anything, it'd be just come out. Yeah. Like it's scary. Like, even like the thought of me now coming out at 19 is scary for me, and I'm out.
Yeah.
But I just know where I was at 19, working in a suit store. Like, not that anything's bad with working in a suit store, but like my whole life was different. Like, I was just about to go on an overseas trip with one of my best mates, who's a guy. And then 2 years later, I lived with one of my other best mates who's a guy. So like, for me, I still think like, would that have happened? Would I have lived with one of my best mates who's a straight guy if I was gay? Because would he have wanted to live with a gay guy for 2 years? Like, if he probably, I reckon he would.
Yeah.
Like, he's the best, but you just don't know. And it's like, would my other best mate have traveled one-on-one to Europe, 20 and 21, just us two, but with a gay guy? So like, that's one of the things that I like always look back on. I'm like, would those things that have happened in my 20s have still happened? Like, that's me again, drawing assumptions, but they might not have.
Yeah.
Like, when you're...
But at least you wouldn't have been, you know, hiding so much of yourself.
But then also like, I might not have done that, but then I would have been living an authentic life.
Yeah.
And I might not have been living with one of my best friends back then, but I would have been out.
Yeah.
So it's like, which one do I want? And I'm like, I love that, but I would have loved to have been out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like you can't change the past, but you definitely reflect on it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's just like, you always will. Like, I'm always going to look back on that period. And even like little things, like I went to an all boys school. So the thought of even coming out in high school back then, like, it would not have happened. Like, there are so many guys that are out now that went to my high school, but back then, like, that whole culture would have been
wasn't a good environment for that.
No way.
Yeah.
But that also sucks.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been amazing to have been out in high school and had like the experiences that you had in high school for me.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. But even like heaps of really good friends that are out now, they've been out for so much longer than me, but they still didn't come out in high school.
Yeah.
So I think that sucks. I think now it's a lot different. But yeah.
I think too, like, there was a big part of you're very good at choosing friends. I think you have a beautiful group of friends. In hindsight, you can see that if they were to respond negatively and not want to be friends with you because of your sexuality, they're not the type of people you want to be friends with. You know?
Yeah, but that's so like. But the fact that I was so scared about that, then why would I be friends with them?
Exactly.
But you get so kind of in your head. Like, I think I spent a lot of time in my 20s throughout just in my head about it all, and like just like kind of just completing the narrative and being like, no, this will happen if this happens, or like this will happen, or they'll think this, and like, no, you can't do that. And it's just like, it's exhausting. Like, I was tired, but now I don't. Like, you always think about stuff, but it's just like not like that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's good. I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
I want to finish with a little something called oranges and lemons.
Okay.
It's simple.
Okay.
Your orange is something that has happened today that's been a highlight, and your lemon is something negative that has happened.
Orange would definitely be being able to kind of tell my story and like not have it just be assumed of when I came out and just what like my life. I think that's been really amazing for me to be able to do that and to be able to do it with you, because I feel like there's no one else that I'd want to do that with.
Oh, stop, you're gonna make me emotional. That's so cute.
Was it lemon?
Lemon, yeah. What's your lemon?
I think getting delayed at the airport for 2 hours.
Yeah. That's a
That
real
sucked.
lemon. My lemon is that Melbourne just keeps letting me down in terms of the weather. My orange is that we finally got to do this, because we were meant to record the other day and you lost your voice. And I was like, is this a sign? Are we not supposed to record this episode?
I've never lost my voice as well. It was so random. And then I tried and I sent you a voice memo in the morning, and I just like You sounded like you were going through puberty again, and there was well, I know I didn't know you then, but this is what I assume when your voice was breaking, that's how it would have sounded. Just really crackly.
Yeah, crackly, and also you sounded super emotional. Like, people are going to listen to the episode and think you're crying the whole time.
But there's no tears. So I'm what's it called? Crocodile tears. I'm like really happy but crying.
Paul, thank you so much for being so open and honest and sharing your story with me. I love
pleasure.
you and I'm proud
Love
of
you
you
too.
and seeing you blossom into this, or bloom, I should say.
Bloom
Into
on
this
brand.
confident, amazing, successful person has just been the best thing ever.
Thank you. I've loved being on the podcast today. It's been amazing.
You're the best.
Love you.
For everyone listening, you can find Paul on his Instagram, which is styledbybloom_, or his personal Instagram is @Paul Versace.